So we have a new set of Grineer Tonfas added into Warframe. The Tonkkatt, a very simplistic naming method that the Grineer go by, right? Tonk, and then just add in the sound effect that they probably make as the blades whiz by. So they are a set of slash-based Grineer Tonfas, ones that turn up the heat as you fight. Basically, they're like the Ripka's big brothers. So you get these by running the new Galleon of Ghouls mission event this weekend, a super simple capture mission. First clear of the mission will give you the blueprint for these weapons, and then you just need to run the mission a few more times in order to get the 2 handles and the 2 blades you're going to need for the full build. I made a video on it yesterday, but the Tonkatts thrive off your combo multiplier. It has a very weird or even frustrating trait or passive at times. Every time you increase your melee combo counter, like from 2 times to 3 times, you gain 4% heat damage as a buff for 15 seconds. This stacks 30 times up to a bonus of 120% heat, and this heat doesn't combine with any other elements on your melee weapon, so you could have electric and heat for a melee influence build with the right setup. But here's the kicker, right? This passive heat bonus can't stack to 30 times off a maxed out 12 times combo. You will need to get 11 heat stacks for, I think, a 12 times combo, which means you then need to reset the combo, lose all of that, and then rebuild it back up again in order to stack that heat buff more than 11 times till you eventually hit the 30 times, which is its maximum. This means you need to get a 12 times combo, then hit something like a heavy attack, then start building your combo again in order to scale that bonus up to 30 times to get the maximum 120% heat bonus. Also, if the buff's duration falls off, since it only has, I think it's a 15 or 16 seconds, and you already have a 12 times combo, then you won't be able to build that trait or that passive until you reset your combo as well. Now, I did notice that mods like Corrupted Charge or Galvanized Reflex, when the buff is active on Galvanized Reflex, it will allow you to gain stacks of the buff simply by swinging heavy attacks or at fresh air, because the heavy attack will reset your combo, and then those mods will give you initial combo count, which will stack that buff back up again. Also, you could use a weapon like the Router Shotgun, which is Callisto shotgun, in order to build up your combo. If you want to use that strategy, since it will max your combo out in seconds, it works incredibly well. Now, the duration of that passive buff will refresh whenever you gain another stack of your melee combo counter, and you will lose all stacks once the duration ends. In terms of stats, the weapons are just okay. They've got a decent slash damage, they've got a 23% crit chance, 21% status chance, and they've also got a 2.1 times crit multiplier. But for the purpose of this video, I did go ahead and mod mine for a basic melee influence build, but they can also work pretty well with melee duplicate, since you're not going to be hitting high tier crits with them, which means duplicate will hit twice. Or you can mod for afflictions in mind, since some of the attacks on the Tonfas will put enemies into a downed or a lifted status, which means affliction will proc. Up to you, whichever arcane you want to run with these. But having heat and electric being spread around as a melee influence build works incredibly well. So this is the build that I used for this footage. It does have 4 Forma on it. Like I said, it is a melee influence build, so I have a 20% chance whenever I do electric status to an enemy to spread all of the status effects on that enemy to enemies within 20 meters. So of course I've got my electric mod equipped, and then the passive is going to give me heat damage as well. Now I have got primed reach to increase my range, Berserker Fury to increase my attack speed, then I've got galvanized steel, which is going to increase my crit chance, but also once the buff for this kicks in, it increases my crit damage, condition overload so that I can deal more damage to enemies affected with status effects, weeping wounds to increase my status chance, blood rush to increase my crit chance, and then primed smite for Orokin, which I'll switch this around whichever faction I'm going against, but you can switch this out for a pressure point. And if you're someone who's relatively new to Warframe who doesn't have primed mods, just use the normal ones. That might not be as effective, but they will still work, so you can use them either. Now, the only other mod that I would want to fit onto this would be Galvanized Elementalist, for the obvious reasons that it is going to be doing status damage to enemies. I'd probably switch this in for Berserker Fury and then just bring a Warframe like, say, Valkyrie or Volt or something that's going to increase my speed to attack against enemies, so that would be quite effective. And like I said, you could use a mod like Corrupt Charge or Galvanized Reflex if you wanted to have a higher initial combo. This, of course, is only going to work once you get some kills, and it's going to stack up to an 80 combo, which I think it's around 4 times or 5 times, but Corrupted Charge will have you at a 2 times combo from the start. Once you do a heavy attack, it will reset your combo, and then Corrupt Charge will bring it back up to a 2 times, which will give you one of the stacks of the passive. Or you could go for a build something like this, which is a viral electric melee influence build where I've got galvanized reflex, which is going to allow me, once I build up my melee combo counter, to attack fresh air once there's no enemies and still build up the trait to the maximum I can within a 12 times combo multiplier. And then when I use a heavy attack, it's going to reduce my combo multiplier just by a little bit because I have got heavy attack efficiency. And then I'm going to be able to build it back up and eventually get to that 30 times, which is the maximum you can get. I've also got relentless combination, which means I've got a 100% chance to increase my melee combo counter whenever I do a slash status effect to an enemy. And since this is a slash heavy weapon, that's going to happen a lot. I've also got tandem bond on my companion, which is this mod here, and it's basically going to increase my combo count again whenever my companion does damage to an enemy or does a melee hit to an enemy. So both of those mods bounce off each other incredibly well. Now, I don't know about you, but I really like the idea of DE giving unique elemental passives to some of our melee weapons, like the recent Scaldra's Dual Vicus, which has that gas damage buff that increases your movement speed and attack speed, but it also is an absolute monster when you pop melee influence onto it. And now that we have the Tonkkatt bringing heat as an element to its passive, I'm kind of curious what next week's Sword and Board, the Tack and Lug, are going to bring, because Sword and Shield are my favourite melee weapon type in game, and I'm really hoping it's something nice. So that's pretty much the build I went with for the majority of this footage. Like I said, the trait or the passive is quite unique because I don't think there's anything that kind of requires you to bounce your combo up and down like this does. But at the same time, it is quite frustrating. The buff is only 15 seconds long and it does drop off rather quickly. And you do tend to kind of lose track of yourself when you're using melee only builds in Warframe, because you kind of get caught up in the slaughter and you lose track of the fact that you only have 15 seconds on this buff, which means it will drop off. And if you have a 12-time combo, you can't build the buff back up again because you need to build your combo in order to build the buff. And if it's already at 12, then of course you're not going to be building it, so you have to reset. So it is a bit frustrating at times, and honestly, I just wish you could get the full 30 stacks off a 12 times combo without having to lose combo and then build it back up again multiple times just to get that full passive buff, since it does only have 15 seconds. But anyway, whenever you get around to building your Tonkkatt, let me know in the comment section below what way you've decided to mod it, or maybe you know in advance before you build it. By all means, let me know in the comment section below. Have a great weekend either way, and as always, thanks for watching.